Welcome back to World War Live, everybody. I'm your host, Conrad Franz, here on Tuesday, June 9th. We're getting well into the summer. I hope everybody had a blessed Pentecost as we are now entering into the Apostles' Fast. I hope everyone has begun the fast and is enjoying the return to the ascetic life in the light of our celebration of Pascha. So, good evening, everybody. A lot of things are going on in the news. The war in Iran is popping off. We have the U.S. and Iran exchanging several different volleys of fire. Israel has come under attack in the past few days as well. We're going to be discussing all of that. Of course, the situation in the UK is reaching a breaking point. Of course, the stabbing and murder of Henry Nowak is still real. We have the whole country reeling. You know, the trial of that Sikh bastard that murdered him is underway, and we have Rupert Lowe, Restore Britain, the Patriots, calling for his death, and the immediate repatriation of all foreigners, which of course is the least that we can do at this point. But there was another stabbing in Belfast. I believe his name was Stephen Ogilvie. He was stabbed by a Sudanese refugee who was gouging out his eyes and attempting to decapitate him. We might watch the video. I don't know if I don't want to get banned on YouTube, so I may not be able to show the video. There's some censored versions we might be able to look at. But of course, this is in Belfast, Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom, but on the, of course, island of Ireland. So we'll talk about it in a sec, but really the perfect place for this to happen if you wanted to ignite a real firestorm, because obviously it's in the UK, so the UK is going to respond. The UK government is going to have to respond, and people across the UK will riot. But it's also on Ireland, and Ireland has been facing many of the same problems with refugees and Irish nationalists and people in Ireland, especially those that are patriotic. They view Northern Ireland as Ireland. They think it's in British occupation, so they don't want those immigrants there either. And we're seeing even pictures of unionists, at Ulster supporters that want to stay with the UK versus, IRA, Irish independence, that want to unite all of Ireland and, be against the United Kingdom, marching together. So real white unity is being seen in the face of these invaders by foreigners. So we're going to be breaking all of that down. So much more. World War III is raging on. Things are very fog of war right now when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz. So we're going to get into that in a second. But I want to thank everybody so much for tuning in. Let us know how you're doing in the chat. I see Luke, See No Evil, Jake Elkins, and several other people. Trad Radical, Ortho UG in the chat tonight. Great to see everybody. Again, I don't know if I see anybody with a wrench, but if any mods are there, feel free to let me know how you're doing. But if you have any questions that you want me to answer, feel free to send them in super chat form. I will answer any and all questions that are sent via super chat, and we're going to be getting into all of the news. I want to encourage everybody as well to please visit our main sponsors this evening at antelopehillpublishing.com. Right here, you can visit their website and use code WWN at checkout. That's right, antelopehillpublishing.com. Code WWN for 10% off. Look, you can get, the American Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death Hezbollah patch. You can get all sorts of incredible historical works, including, why is it not loading? Including the third edition of Culture of Critique. You can get the Transgender Industrial Complex, among a whole host of other incredible, censored, largely on the other major booksellers' works. So check that out at antelopehillpublishing.com. And again, use code WWN for 10% off. You can't say we're not fitting you out with books and information and knowledge, because we are. But of course, if you're not already behind the paywall at worldwarnow.co, you know what to do. If you aren't already a supporter, go visit it. Check out the latest Ether Hour episodes, of course, with Andrei Afanasyev. We break down the latest in Russia, the latest escalations with Armenia as Armenia seeks EU membership and breaks away from the Russian world. Be sure to listen to my latest World War Now episode with Isaac Swalem, or with my friend Isaac, who is a great podcaster, host of the Unending Catastrophe podcast. Be sure to check that one out. He filled in for Dimitri this week. I think Dimitri should be back for World War Now this week. Not 100% sure, but he'll be back very soon. So I want to thank everybody again for tuning in, and want to encourage everyone to send in any super chats. The other main thing I want to encourage everybody to do is visit the World War Now chat on Substack. I'm going to link this down in the description. And if you're not already a paid supporter and you want to become one, you will be able to ask us any questions in our Q&A thread on Substack. All paid subscribers get access to the Q&A threads. You can ask Dimitri and I any and all questions, long or short, detailed, controversial, or otherwise, and we will answer it in a extended Ether Hour episode. We'll give your question whatever answer we feel that it truly deserves in long form in an episode. We love doing it to get to know the audience better. And you can ask us all sorts of questions, even if you just want to get to know us, Dimitri and I, as the hosts more. Feel free to check that out. Again, get behind the paywall at worldwarnow.co, as I just showed, and you will not only get access to that Q&A thread, but you'll also get access to hundreds and hundreds of episodes of Ether Hour that are only accessible in full to paid subscribers, including our good friend, former member of the European Parliament, Nick Griffin, our series on Rasputin with our good friend Alex. We talked to former Defense Minister of Lebanon, Yaqub Saraf. We talked to Larry Johnson. We talked to Jim Jatras, Mike Painovich, Dr. Matthew Raphael Johnson, so many other incredible guests. So really, if you're not subscribed on worldwarnow.co to Ether Hour, what are you even doing, right? So it's time to get on that. But here we are in the midst of the situation in Iran. We could start anywhere first. I don't really even know where to start, but the situation in Iran and the U.S., we have these strange statements from Iran and CENTCOM. Of course, Iran released a statement saying the warmongering U.S. regime early this morning attacked several points in Jask, Sirik, and Keshem under false pretexts, causing damage to a telecommunications tower in Sirik and destroying our 2 water tanks in the Bimani district of the country. In response to this hostile act by the enemy, the naval forces of the IRGC attacked the 5th Naval Fleet of Bahrain with drones at 2:30 a.m. The clashes continue, and the brave defenders of the Iranian nation are responding to the enemy's aggression. If the hostility continues, heavier responses are on the way. And again, that's from the IRGC. CENTCOM then said, U.S. Central Command forces completed self-defense strikes against Iran June 9th at the Commander-in-Chief's direction in response to yesterday's downing of a U.S. Army Apache helicopter. CENTCOM forces struck Iranian air defense, ground control stations, and surveillance radar sites near the Strait of Hormuz with precision munitions from U.S. Air Force and Navy fighter jets. The operation was a proportional response to recent attacks on U.S. forces and international commercial ships transiting regional waters. U.S. forces remain vigilant and postured to defend against unjustified Iranian aggression. So, it seems both sides might be trying to downplay this, but the Iranian response, this was from where was the statement? From Middle East Spectator. He says something isn't adding up. This is pro-Iranian news outlet. They say something isn't adding up. Even if we assume the drones were indeed launched and intercepted, that would be a very weak response. Inexcusable, in fact. No sirens even sounded, and a worrying precedent. We have to wait for clarification. So, all evidence was pointing to this leading to an all-out breaking out of war. Of course, Saturday, after Isaac and I recorded World War Now, there was the big escalation of strikes. So really for the past 3-4 days, the ceasefire has been effectively destroyed and the war has been ongoing. And of course, we're going to get to Lebanon too, because that has been interesting as well. But it seems there's a potential that both sides are going to be walking this down, trying to turn things down, turn the heat down again. We, of course, had J.D. Vance saying that a deal could be done in a few weeks or a few months. So it's clear that all of the talk about an impending deal is not exactly real. It is wishful thinking, wish casting, trying to say the words and meme it into reality. But again, maybe the Iranians saw an opportunity here to get more concessions out of the United States. Reportedly, $3 billion were shipped or flown from the UAE to Iran as sort of one of the beginnings of these payouts that the U.S. will be delivering to the Iranians. I think the Iranians want $23 billion, and I guess that's the first $3 billion that has been delivered. So the Iranians, I think, maybe think they'll get a full withdrawal of the U.S. from the region. We, of course, did get Abbas Araghchi and Ghalibaf and the others saying that the U.S. needs to withdraw from the region, and then they won't need to worry about. Abbas Araghchi said, despite its defeats on the battlefield, the U.S. opted to test our determination. Our powerful armed forces will leave no attack or threat unanswered. Leave our region if you want to be safe. History of the Persian Gulf has many chapters on dire fates of intruding outsiders. So it seems that the idea of full U.S. withdrawal is very much still on the table for the Iranians. That is something that they want. They have no interest in closing the Strait of Hormuz. We still don't have any real answers on that strike on Oman that came just days after Trump and Scott Bessent threatened Oman over their cooperation with the Iranians on the control of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. They have the Persian Gulf Strait Authority that they are jointly operating and will be coordinating charging those fees that they are going to be charging people for passing through, environmental fees and other maintenance fees and whatnot. And that is, of course, deemed unacceptable to the United States. So we also saw the Yemenis enter the war. They launched a few missiles and drones towards Israel. One of them apparently accidentally hit Saudi Arabia, so it was falsely reported as a strike targeting Saudi Arabia. So that is the current state of the conflict. Iraqi militias apparently are standing by, ready to enter the conflict. And of course, Iran continues to strike Kurdistan, the Iraqi Kurds there that have clearly been the hope and dreams of the American establishment to try to launch a ground uprising against the Iranians. But no, the Iranians seem to have been battering the Kurds enough to where they're not really capable of leading any real resistance. So that's the situation there. Of course, in Lebanon, we are seeing escalating Israeli strikes all across Tyre, southern Lebanon, and Hezbollah have apparently it wasn't actually Hezbollah, but Lebanese fighters infiltrated northern Israel occupied Palestine itself, firing on IDF soldiers and others that they encountered. And apparently this was just a random Lebanese civilian, not a member of Hezbollah. Somebody who simply entered, decided he was going to take matters into his own hands and enter Israel and cause chaos. And it did cause chaos. Everyone was freaking out. They thought there was more of an incursion. It's crazy how, again, these are hundreds of miles of long front lines and big, again, it's not like Ukraine, but these are still, real big areas. And one infiltrator can just freak out all of the Israelis. I think it's October 7th again. It says here, Lebanese media claims it was Hamza Hammoud who did it on his own terms, not part of Hezbollah or any armed group in Lebanon. He informed his parents, who reported it to social media after his martyrdom. He reached the Israeli border area and passed by all Israeli bases and occupation zones alone. Apparently he had a golden AK-47. So it seems, again, I've reported on it before, that more and more Lebanese citizens, especially in the south of the Litani and other rivers, are realizing Hezbollah are the best chance they have to defend themselves against the Zionist entity. Even Joseph Ayoun was forced to basically say that if Israel keeps firing on us, he can't really ensure any kind of ceasefire, basically legitimating Hezbollah's resistance, because it's getting absurd to not resist what has been going on. And of course, the strikes on Beirut are rumored to be about to occur again. Israeli chief of staff and all sorts of people are lobbying Netanyahu to just ignore Trump and strike Lebanon as hard as possible. Trump, of course, is pressuring Netanyahu otherwise. And again, some of the largest Hezbollah strikes into Israel, into Kiryat Shmona and other places have been going on. And again, if Beirut is struck, the Iranians have made it clear that they will be retaliating. And I have seen Iranian media claiming that what should happen is strikes on southern Lebanon should lead to strikes on Haifa, and strikes on Beirut should lead to strikes on Tel Aviv. And it's true that we haven't been seeing quite as many strikes on Tel Aviv recently, which is a little bit concerning as far as the pace of the resistance is concerned. But we did see a very strange clip released a few minutes ago on the live broadcast of the IRIB Iranian news network that showed a simulation of a nuclear explosion over a city center. So that is very concerning, to say the least. But again, I'm going to keep monitoring the situation. Again, the Apache helicopter that was shot down earlier today by the Iranians, they took credit for it. Apparently all of the passengers were rescued, so that's good at least. But it appears that the Iranians might not be wanting to retaliate as strongly as, frankly, they should. But again, we'll be keeping tabs on the situation very closely. Wanted to give the good news, which is that Carmelo Anthony has been sentenced to, well, unfortunately, actually, it's the sentencing. I wanted to say he's been convicted. The jury found him guilty of murder in the first degree, or capital murder in the state of Texas, in the killing of Austin Metcalf. Of course, for those that aren't familiar, let me go. Austin Metcalf was killed by Carmelo Anthony. I'll go to my profile and see my posts about it. Let's go ahead and share this tab. Okay, so Carmelo Anthony, black kid, 17-year-old black kid, killed a 17-year-old white kid that he didn't know, sitting under his tent at a track meet. He was asked to leave the tent that wasn't his or part of his school, At the track meet, he then pulled out a knife and stabbed Austin Metcalf in the chest, killing him. It says here, jury finds Carmelo Anthony guilty of first-degree murder in the killing of Austin Metcalf. Anthony reportedly broke down in tears upon hearing the verdict. He is now in police custody awaiting sentencing. And we have the recent update. Unfortunately, the Collin County jury has sentenced Carmelo Anthony to 35 years in prison for the murder of Austin Metcalf. And what I said was, I don't consider this justice. Death penalty is the only correct option. But life without the possibility of parole would be tolerable. This is not. White Americans should be outraged. And again, the only way that this situation is even remotely tolerable is, I mean, people, they're going to have to show up for every parole hearing. I'm hearing that he's going to have to serve at least half of it. So that's what he's going to have to serve 17 years in prison. That's really nothing if you think about it. I mean, he killed somebody unprovoked in cold blood, a 17-year-old, someone who never got to reach adulthood. He got bail. He got to graduate from high school, experience prom, and basically live out for the past year and a half, live outside of justice, live, as a free person. He's now behind bars, of course, and will be for several decades. But they're going to have to show up to those parole hearings, make sure he doesn't get out several times over the 35 years. And then 35 years is up and he's just out. He'll be he's 19 now. So he'll be under 60 years old, so he'll get to live a solid 30, 40 years potentially as a free man. And, this is the kind of thing where he's going to be in danger of prison justice, obviously, right? Because any Aryan nations or, white, he gets sent to state prison, certain white supremacists might figure it out. I'm sure people will send them letters, let them know what he looks like. And, maybe they'll decide that, 35 years isn't enough. And maybe this guy needs to just die. Right. And I'm not saying I would encourage that or support that, but this is the kind of thing that happens when you refuse to really do it. If he was in their life without parole, people might be like, yeah, let's let him suffer in prison, and people might leave him alone. But of course, what society needs in situations like this is public execution. The community needs to see antisocial, evil people like this punished to experience a sort of, it's a civilizational release valve. And you need to see it, and it needs to be public. And it would be better if it was, firing squad or hanging or something like that. All of this sanitized lethal injection stuff, I think, is silly. So you should just put him in front of the town, put him in front of the school and all the people that were friends with Austin Metcalf can watch him, and then just hang him. Like that's what should happen. And obviously I would never endorse vigilante justice or taking the law into your own hands. But I think, again, there's a reason why historically those things happen. And it wasn't necessarily just because everybody involved was indelibly and irredeemably evil. It was because sometimes justice isn't meted out properly. And this is one of those situations. Obviously, it's good that he got convicted for murder and that he's going to have to spend a lot of time in prison. And, maybe he is clearly not a well-behaved person. So maybe he won't know how to behave himself in prison, and he'll get additional charges in prison. And then he will spend the rest of his life behind bars, which is, again, the bare minimum. He should have his life taken from him as he took a life from somebody else, right? That's basics. But he, at the very least, he should spend the rest of his life in prison and never get to experience normal life. That's how justice works. $5 from David C. Thank you, Patriot. No message. Thank you so much. Andrew Palamos. Through the prayers of our righteous Athenite fathers and of the Panagia, Lord Jesus Christ, have mercy on us. Amen. Mercy on everyone. May God have mercy on the soul of the reposed Austin Metcalf, on Carmelo Anthony. May he repent for his despicable crimes, and maybe he can apologize to the family. Because again, he tried to claim self-defense. So how much remorse does he really have? We are getting reports, Middle East Spectator, more missile launches from Iran. Let's go, baby. That's what we like to hear. That's the thing. The ceasefire is just so cringe, because I remember when the war, the 2 months, all of March and a huge section of April when the war was going on. It was Lent, the fasting was hitting, but you wake up every morning. I checked my phone after morning prayers, and you just see more missiles launched at Israel, and it just made it a good day. It just made every day a good day. And now it's all this tit for tat back and forth. This one video isn't loading, but I'm going to delete that on the Telegram. Hope everyone's following along on the World War Now Telegram at World War Now Telly. I just posted a video of visual confirmations of Iranian ballistic missiles launched from Khomeini in central Iran, which is not one of the most commonly used missile launch facilities. At least 3 ballistic missiles have been launched. So hopefully these are followed by more strikes and that they're targeting Israel as well as the U.S. bases in the region. But again, Lebanon, the front there is becoming disastrous for Israel, as reported. Good to see Alan in the chat. We've got a trustworthy moderator holding things down so that people don't get too crazy. Other thing going on, I want to make people aware. Father John Whiteford was highlighting this on X. The Israelis have been escalating in the West Bank. This video is from the last completely Christian village in the Holy Land, the village of Taibeh. This is what Israel just did to it. Here we'll see it's a big hillside fire. They're burning the crops, the farmland, homes and territories of these people, stealing their land. Despicable, despicable behavior from the killers of Christ. So we need to pray for everybody in the West Bank. Gaza, Israel continues to encroach on Gaza. We actually saw a single missile launch from Gaza recently, and the Iranians have talked about if the U.S. doesn't, stop its aggression, that not only will they continue to strike U.S. bases in Israel, not only will Hezbollah continue to strike U.S. bases in Israel, and not only will the Houthis continue to strike Israel, but the resistance factions in Gaza will also start to rise up again and strike Israel and resist once more. And Hamas is not disarmed, and there are actually more Hamas fighters now than there potentially were even at the start, beginning of October 7th, with how much they've been able to recruit in the aftermath of the genocide that was committed against them in Gaza. So that's the situation as it stands in the Middle East and Levant right now. The other big news, of course, is the situation in the UK. And we have it, again, across the UK, Scotland, England, Northern Ireland, in reaction to the stabbing in Belfast. Again, this comes very soon after the latest revelations about Henry Nowak, where the body cam footage was released showing the police handcuffing him as he's saying, I've been stabbed, and saying, no, you haven't, mate. They arrested him under accusations of racism. He bleeds out and dies while they just let Vikram Chigwa, or whatever his Sikh brown immigrant disgusting invader name is. Well, he just went free and was like, oh yeah, this is fine. This was great. He was racist, therefore he deserves to die. And, they arrested him. There's the picture of his pale hand after bleeding out, handcuffed with the disgusting fingernail claws through the glove on him. It's just disgusting. And so the whites are reacting to this, the white native Britons and Scots and, Anglo-Saxons, Anglo-Celts are reacting to this. And then this stabbing in Belfast had to happen. So this was in Glasgow. It said Glasgow's out. Henry Nowak stabbed, handcuffed, bleeding. I can't breathe. White lives matter. And it is true, white lives matter is suddenly becoming much more normalized than it ever was in the past. We have reports. It says here, breaking, around 200 masked youths have broken away from a main protest here in Clofern. This is in North Belfast. TSG units and helicopters deployed. The protests are in relation to an attempted murder in North Belfast. One man has been charged to court tomorrow. Again, that's the Sudanese immigrant. And again, we've seen major protests. Right here, it says, incredible moment when MSM says the mass patriots in Belfast are stopping cars at checkpoints to see if they're occupied by foreigners. And I did see videos of this. There are patriots setting up checkpoints in Northern Ireland, seeing if there are foreigners inside. And this is based.
But there have been some people who've been willing to engage with us off camera, away from the glare of the camera, and unconfirmed, but someone just mentioned to us about 10 minutes ago that in another community just up the road from where we are just now, locals there are stopping cars, checkpoints essentially set up to try and see who the occupants are inside those vehicles and if they are foreign nationals at all. And that but there have been some people who've been willing to engage with us off camera, away from the glare of.
Anglos are rising up. Here's a video in Belfast while a bus was torched. Another big update, we saw rioters breaking into migrant houses and HMO housing blocks, that is taxpayer-funded houses for asylum seekers, setting them on fire. So it's very targeted direct action. The natives of the British Isles have had enough. That is for sure. And again, this only bolsters Restore Britain, Rupert Lowe. It bolsters reform as well, because most people, this is what the whites are mobilizing. They're masked up. They're moving out. The police have already been, oh, here's the city. This is from Glasgow as well. Yeah, here's the checkpoints. In Northern Ireland, they're checking occupants.
Yo, they're fucking checking if they were fucking That's a holy shit.
Yeah, here's that bus being torched. Someone asked, are things finally happening? Some things are happening. In fact, some things are always happening, if you have eyes to see. Let's see the latest. Oh yeah, this video was crazy.
Shit. Shit. Oh my god. Shit. Shit. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Smashes in the building.
Oh my god.
The white man is back, baby. The white man is back. Got $10 from MR Christ is King. Great show as always. Hope you get DD on soon. God bless. Yes, sir. We're doing our best. We are doing our best. And indeed, things are very much happening. U.S. senior official told Fox News this is about Iran again. The situation remains active and the U.S. military is ready to respond if Iran decides to retaliate. Well, Iran retaliated, so escalation after escalation after escalation. When we're just going to stop playing the ceasefire game, roll up our sleeves, and punch the rest of this thing out, because I think Iran can do it. I think Iran can defeat Zog, and I want to see it happen. I do. I confess. I want to see it happen. But again, I'm trying to find the latest footage coming out of the Belfast situation. Of course, the police have already said they're going to be using, I don't want to show the video of the stabbing. A lot of people already saw it in Belfast, of the Sudanese migrant on top of the guy, straddling him, stabbing his face with a knife, trying to gouge out his eyes and decapitate him and cut out his throat. The victim is apparently still in a critical condition. We don't know if he's going to survive. So that is ongoing. And again, like I said, Northern Ireland, this was the perfect tinderbox for this to happen. Irish patriots who have been the most willing to riot, destroy property, burn down migrant housing have been the ones that, they've been the most likely to protest and riot, the Irish. And in the UK has been having the Henry Nowak thing and is coming to a head. And now in Northern Ireland, which will get both populations, the UK and the Brits and the Irish, the Scots, everybody, to get angry and riled up. So it was really they threw it on the most well doused pile, I guess, of gasoline doused fur or hair or whatever it is that we're lighting on fire here. As far as the Iranian missiles, it says if these were targeting the Gulf, alerts would have sounded by now. So these may be targeting Israel or Jordan or something. So we will see what the situation is, but they need to launch more missiles, if I'm being honest. But I did see, I wanted to show. Some people are saying they're getting their super chats blocked. Yeah, Stephen Ogilvy identified as the victim of the stabbing. Yeah, here's a great picture showing Irish and Irish and Ulsterite patriots rallying together. Of course, I lost the. There we go. $2. Ping. Thank you, Alan. I don't know why YouTube is censoring us. Maybe they're, I'm dropping too much alpha. Here we need the Irish and the British Irish, the Ulsterites, rising up against the common enemy. These are people whose grandfathers were fighting and killing each other, parents even fighting and killing each other. But they realized that while those differences may have been important, they are not as important as resisting the Great Replacement. There was a great Sam Hyde video about the white man being back, which I'm sure everyone is familiar with, but I can't seem to find the video. Yeah, this is, the white man rising up. This is even though I don't support Trump, this energy is still real.
Get out of here.
The white man is back, baby. The white man is back.
Get out of here.
The white man is back, baby. The white man is.
It's just one of the classics. And look, Carmelo Anthony sentenced to 35 years in prison. The white man rising up in Ireland and the UK. Iran launching missiles at Israel. It's an Aryan summer. It's white boy summer. It's Aryan nation summer. We are resisting world Jewry. We are putting black criminals in prison. We are sending a message. What did the judge say? Carmelo Anthony started crying after he got sentenced and was announced guilty after the jury reached their verdict. And then the lawyer was like, "Can we take him into another room so he can console himself?" And the judge was like, "No, he's in the custody of Collin County right now. Things are going to move. Things are going to move a little differently from here on out." And so that's the situation. Senior U.S. official tells Fox News that 20 sites inside Iran have been targeted in the ongoing American strikes. Situation described as still active. U.S. military on full alert. American forces prepared to respond immediately. For the first time in 3+ months, someone says they have no idea what's being targeted. That's Iranian sources. So again, it seems that we are in a peak fog of war situation. But Israel is hopefully the target here, because the Gulf, they've been targeted a lot, but Israel, of course, is the real source here. Yeah, for anybody, it's largely censored, but this was the attack on the white man, Stephen Ogilvy. He's holding the knife, covered in blood, gouging out and trying to decapitate. Again, like, the fact that this image exists, like, this type of thing should have only happened one time before every single one of them was removed. Like, I'm talking legal, illegal. Your family's been there for 40 years, for 7 generations. I don't care. You're going back to Africa. You're going to Africa. You're going to the Middle East, wherever it is that you're from. We'll send you back to the Caribbean if that's where you're from. And you do this kind of nonsense. And again, that's the only way these people are going to shape up. And you have to stop. I mean, the fact that they're just throwing them in hotels and this housing, I mean, this kind of thing needs to end yesterday. And it's clear that there's nobody in power or even close to power that has the will to do it. So that's why people are taking matters into their own hands. That's why there's riots. That's why there's violence. Because when nothing happens, and that's the only language these people understand. Especially, I mean, those types of people that are like in that image. Clearly, violence is the only thing a person like that is capable of understanding, because you can the type of person is beyond rehabilitation. And I would personally say that someone like Carmelo Anthony is also beyond rehabilitation as well, because again, people are like, oh, he didn't do anything before this. It's like, yeah, at any moment, this guy was ready to just do that, ready to just kill somebody over a minor altercation. And we just can't be living with people like that. If people like that, if there's a statistical reality among certain people that do that, we should be allowed to live separately from them. And with everything going on in the UK and with everything going on here in the US, I mean, either it's about to happen now, or we're one or two incidents away from a plurality or a majority of white people in these European countries and in America saying, we're going to peacefully separate, or we're going to separate by force. We are going to find our own spaces. We're going to have our own neighborhoods. We may even have our own cities and states at a certain level, if if some kind of true criminal justice and restore to the norm isn't restored. That's restore Britain, restore UK. That's what Rupert Lowe's party is. It's about sort of restoring some kind of normalcy, because right now the boot is on the neck of the white man, or as Enoch Powell said, the brown black man horde holds the whip hand over the white man in this country, and it's been that way, especially in the UK, pretty much since the turn of the millennia, at least. We have alerts in Bahrain, apparently, so Bahrain is being targeted by some of these missiles. Bahrain has been targeted heavily since the beginning, so not a surprise there. It seems the protests in Belfast might be winding down. It is getting pretty late over there in the UK and Ireland. We did see petrol bombs thrown at police cars. So there was, in fact, staunch resistance. $5 from Jonathan Kelly. You got to go back. They do all have to go back, every single one of them. Every last one of them has to go back. Yeah, there's the bus that burned down. Cop car set on fire. Ah, yes, this did happen as well. Turkish barbers tonight. The window of the business were smashed. Several items through the window. A migrant, I believe a migrant-owned grocery store, Muslim foreigner-owned grocery store was burned down, among several other businesses. So the people know what they're doing. The people know what to target. And it's clear that, again, everyone knows how to kick things into gear when the targets have been selected. Clearly, these people are able to organize. The left is able to mobilize. The left is the migrants are able to mobilize. The right and whites are able to mobilize. So, unfortunately, especially in Europe, the conditions are being set for more and more civil conflict. I mean, what was going on in France? What was that, a year, 2 years ago? The riots there after that migrant was shot by the police. That combined with the continued killing of these white people by these foreigners that have been brought in by their own Jewish occupied governments, it's a real tinderbox. And in America, when you combine it with illegal immigrants and then the black situation with whites, it's a different type of situation. But with the internet, these issues are becoming kind of representing the same cultural moment, and a white identity in Europe and America facing the great replacement and the brutal violence that they face largely by blacks as well as Muslims, and black Muslims, Arab Muslims. It's creating a white identity and white unity in America, in Europe, in Canada, Australia as well. Of course, the Anglosphere and all places where white people live. I mean, Australia, One Nation is now the most popular party in Australia because the Australian government banned the White Australia Party. And so they're now all flocking to One Nation. So now One Nation is basically just a full-fledged white nationalist party because all their members are from the party that they banned. And ironically, if the Australians had just let White Australia stay around, they could have maybe, sequestered those people. But no, they've dramatically escalated things by banning the party. And of course, again, we have in Canada, Alberta independence, all these other movements, much more identitarian in nature than it would have been mere decades ago, especially from the Anglo side of things. but I don't see too many more updates from the UK. It seems the protest might be dying down right now. Maybe we're going to get more later in the week. But it appears there are interceptions and explosions going on right now in Bahrain. An impact at the US NSA Bahrain base. So US facilities still very much being targeted. People says we must expel all Muslims now from all over Europe, Australia, each individually put together. Look, here's the thing. Obviously, he's from Sudan, so that guy probably is a Muslim, but some of these crimes are committed by Christians. The crime committed against Henry Nowak were Sikhs. The issue is not that they're Muslim. Obviously, if you're a Muslim, you shouldn't be here. That's a easy indicator for what you should be gone for, but you can't have non-whites. That's the real problem. That's the issue. Doesn't matter your religion. Obviously, Christian is maybe one of the few, if you're going to let in any non-whites at all, they of course would need to be Christian. But look, Tommy Robinson and these other civnats, they talk all about how, oh, we don't need Muslims, but we do need Hindus and Sikhs and Indians and all these other people. Well, Vikram Digwa, the brown clown that killed Henry Nowak, was a Sikh. So according to Tommy Robinson, he was just as British as Stephen Ogilvy, the person just killed, or the King Charles or somebody like that. So that's why we can't take civnat seriously. And that's why, look, I am against Islam as much as the next guy on an identitarian basis. But we can't let our opposition to Islam as Christian identitarians, as Europeans, turn into a broader controlling ideology where our focus is being anti-Islam. Our focus is not being anti-Islam. We need to be Christian, pro-European, pro-white, in favor of our own civilization. And again, one of the most controversial things about the Henry Nowak case was the fact that white Britons aren't even allowed to carry knives for self-defense, but Sikhs are allowed to carry their ceremonial daggers as part of their religion, and they just have an exemption for being minorities. There are also interceptions over Bahrain, the capital of Bahrain, of course, Manama, but Bahrain is almost an entirely urbanized landmass. The Iranians need to target the bridge connecting Bahrain to Saudi Arabia. I think they did early on in the Purim War, but they need to do it again. They need to destroy it because we've seen local Shias forming militia groups and resistance groups against the Al-Khalifa regime in Bahrain, and they might be rising up. So again, if that bridge is severed between Bahrain and Saudi Arabia wouldn't be able to reinforce Bahrain from a domestic uprising. And I think it's time that the Iranians start using that level of pressure on the Gulf states and on the U.S. Because again, if there's a domestic uprising and Saudi Arabia can't reinforce it, that's this NSA base, that's the U.S. Fifth Fleet HQ, and all the other CIA military outposts that are in Bahrain. So it'll be a huge victory for the Iranians. But again, I'm not seeing any more Belfast news. Yeah, again, this is one of the most dramatic videos.
Send them home! Send them home! Send them home! Send them home!
That's the people will get it. The people need them sent home. These were
After the speeches, 200 masked men broke away and marched into the White Abbey estate. On the outskirts of North Belfast, several hundred people gathered at the Clockfern roundabout.
Patriots. Of course, we have seen the worry in Ireland, especially in Ireland. There's so many paramilitaries that are still active or were active in the very recent history. And this was a few months ago.
To the people of Newry, Mourne and Down, we, the New Republican Movement, have watched their councillors and MLAs over the past 12 months. The level of disrespect shown to the people who put you into power, this cannot be ignored any longer. We are proud men of Ireland. We are patriots. Your policies and decision-making in regards to flooding our communities with undocumented military-aged men is not acceptable. We will not sit back any longer and watch our culture and religion destroyed by the people we put in power. Also, the sexual indoctrination of our children in schools has not went unnoticed either. The New Republican movement will take immediate action against anyone who threatens our ways of life and the safety of our women and children. We have your addresses and known your movements. Every one of you are legitimate targets as of today. The New Republican movement, 28/11/25.
Yeah, that was back in November 2025. And the sentiment that these guys are expressing is only spread and increased. So that's the situation back in Europa, in the homeland where we all come from. $2 super sticker from Jonathan Kelly. Thank you, Patriot. I want to encourage everybody again, if you haven't already subscribed at worldwarnow.co, to do so, to get behind the paywall, to listen to the latest Ether Hour episodes. Again, you get such great value, just $7 a month. You get hundreds and hundreds of hours of content, and all of this is evergreen. Really great stuff. Again, discussions with Gregory Hears about Julian the Apostate, discussions with Cleave to Antiquity, with Levon Vasadze, with Dr. Matthew Raphael Johnson, all about Russian history, St. John Vatatzis, and so much more. So please, please get behind the paywall at worldwarnow.co. It's one of the best ways to support the show. I'm going to link it, of course, in the live chat. But also, we got to encourage everyone, if you're already a paid subscriber, or you want to just give a one-time donation, I want to encourage everybody to visit the Buy Me a Coffee at buymeacoffee.com/worldwarnow. One of the best ways to support the show as well. You can give us a one-time donation. We will try to send a thank you note to everybody that does so, and a lot of people have made that one of the main ways that they donate. So go to buymeacoffee.com/worldwarnow and help us out here. But we do have a visual confirmation of impacts in Bahrain. I would share on Telegram, but Telegram doesn't let me full screen the video, so let me try to find on Twitter. Of course, I would post it myself normally, but I'm streaming, so I didn't want to do all that. Of course, here's footage from Iran of the missile volleys themselves coming from central Iran. Yeah, we'll show on the Telegram then. All right, everyone can see there, bottom right. You can see there in the top right corner, you can see the strike. Yeah, you can see up there in the skyline. So there were impacts. The Iranians have struck the United States. Now, it's been an eventful evening, to say the least. It seems the Houthis are also declaring that they are boycotting and banning Israeli shipping from the Red Sea. That's why they've been targeting the port of Eilat in southern Israel again. It seems they are, at the very least, closing the Bab el-Mandeb Straits to Israel, which, again, if you remember last year when Biden and then Trump continued the strikes on Yemen, but specifically Biden, when he did the international coalition with France and Britain to take down the Houthis and reopen the Bab el-Mandeb Straits and open shipping up again in the Red Sea, the U.S. struck a deal with the Houthis that said the Houthis wouldn't strike U.S. ships or other ships, and they would only strike Israel. And that's what they did. The U.S. signed a deal with them, stopped striking Yemen, while Yemen continued to strike Israel. So the Houthis were able to, reach a deal with the United States that still didn't benefit Israel. So it shows you how important force posture is, deterrence, establishing deterrence, and why the language of warfare and the language of violence and the language of these missile strikes, it needs to be utilized. And and I think the Iranians and the Houthis, again, obviously they're more aware of their internal instabilities than I am, but it's very obvious that the U.S. and Israel, the only language that they can understand is force. So I want to thank everyone for tuning in. What's everyone thoughts on the whole setup that I've got going on here? It's finally kind of come together. We've got the flat Earth map, we've got Tsar Nicholas, the Rocket Brigade, Tsar Nicholas II Rocket Brigade here. I'll show it to everybody. I got this in Donbass from members of the Tsar Nicholas II Rocket Brigade. And of course, we got John Vitatsis, the Marble Emperor himself, with the sword out of the sheath. He's walking around these days. Hope I can meet him someday. We also have another Tsar Nicholas icon here, and we got the Rublev Trinity with my St. George ribbon I got in Russia as well right there. So let me know what you think of the set. I guess I'll put this down at the on the end. Eventually, hopefully I'll have a more real studio that isn't just my bedroom, but all these similar accoutrements will be there. But I think it's starting to really come together, especially when we got two people on. You can still see the St. John icon. So I hope everyone appreciates the aesthetic setup that I ostensibly put a decent amount of effort into. But I really think the blue as well looks really good on the St. John icon. But if anyone has any other super chats, feel free to send them in. I'm, of course, monitoring the situation. Again, there's two reports saying that there was either that there were strikes at the NSA Bahrain base and on the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. So that seems that there's disputing reports. We're going to get more info here. And I know the flat Earth map is somewhat obscured, but I do need the light, obscuring around my head so I can, it's my saintly halo. Just kidding, of course. I'm far from a saint and never will be one. But I have to have, I've got my ring light and my front light, but I need a little backlight as well, so it isn't dark and I can, things are still illuminated. But yeah, we're getting more confirmations of that strike in Bahrain. But no, anyone has any super chats to send, feel free to send them in. It's probably time to lock in on some ethno-guesser here. But if anyone has any further questions about Carmelo Anthony, about the Iran strikes, about the strikes or the protests in Ireland and the UK. Oh, we're getting initial reports of another wave of ballistic missiles launched from Iran. So again, it seems that the Iranians are just sending them over. $5 from Luke RB. Here's a donation. The World War Now Zog Mind Control Defense System, aka ad block for ethno-guesser. Okay, I could, I do have ad blockers on. Ethno-guesser is just, I don't think the ads have been quite as bad ever since the latest updates. But again, I have considered potentially uploading, my own ancestry results and playing the other genome game versions, but nobody seems to have been super excited about that. Apparently there's more interceptions over Bahrain going on right now. Again, the Iranians, I think they need to just push through the ceasefire and get back to again, speaking on the terms that the aggressors and the enemy understands. But look, I understand they are the underdog in this fight. So when they recognize, their people have been able to handle a lot, but they don't want their people to have to go through energy strikes and the destruction of civilian infrastructure. So with all of that in mind, it's time to play some ethno-guesser. You already know what it is. There we go. Let's lock in and play the game. Yeah, the last few streams really haven't been too many ads, but I feel like I've seen this guy before, but I don't know. Look, we don't need people complaining about the stream. If you wanna do it your way, do it your way. But we gotta lock in here. Iranian ballistic missiles are targeting the U.S. base in Jordan. This is maybe not a first, but one of the rarer targetings. So that is what's going on. Where in India, though? Where in India are these people from? Like, are these like like my instincts tell me like South India down here. Mormons gave out 10 million pounds of food. Stock up. I don't know what that means, but thank you, Capped Clutch Studio, for the $2. Central India Hedge. Well, I accidentally just closed the tab. Thankfully, that was the first round, so it doesn't matter. Northwest India. Yeah, I don't think it's Northwest India, if I'm being honest, but I'm going to go Central India on the hedge. Yeah. I honestly knew it wasn't even India. I just kind of believed everybody. I'm not joking that I actually kind of thought this. Please lock this in, guys. We've gotten this one wrong like 5 times, so let's not do that again. Arabian Vedoid, ancient Veda-like type for the Arabian Peninsula and South Iran. Yeah, these are like southern Yemenis. Like, lock this in. I knew this too. That's the worst part. $5 from Jonathan Kelly. Thoughts about Larry Johnson reports that Iran may have up to 8 nuclear weapons. I'm skeptical. I maintain that if they did have secret nuclear weapons, it would be very, very secret. I don't know. Larry Johnson would just be knowing that. But again, we just saw that video from IRIB. Random. I don't know if it was an accident, but it showed a clip of a city skyline being blown up with nukes. Maybe there is maybe the Iranians will hit Tel Aviv with a nuke or something, or Bahrain or Dubai or something with a nuclear bomb if they are pushed to the brink and things really seem like they aren't going their way. But again, if that happens, then Israel would just use nukes. So I don't know why Iran would want to be introducing nukes into the escalation ladder, into the current force posture, because they definitely, even if they do have nukes, they definitely don't have a nuclear advantage. But yes, the news is the IRGC targeted the U.S. Al-Azraq base in Jordan with a missile attack. I'm not seeing any confirmations of any touchdowns, but that makes sense. It's reported interception attempt. We've got videos of interception attempts at Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan. Be sure to check the World War Now Telegram. Be sure to follow along. But yeah, let's lock this in, guys. Not India. We still got over 1,000 points at least, but okay. This has to be West Africa, in my opinion. Like, this has to be like something over here. But if people think differently, I want to know in the chat. Nigeria. People always guess Nigeria, but, you know, it's actually Nigeria a lot less, I think, than people might think. You would think. The guy on the left looks like Fresh from Fresh and Fit. That's what someone says, Hotel Rwanda, Black Hawk Down, or Blood Diamond. I do. And all the ones that look like they're from Blood Diamond are also in Sudan and South Africa. That's the problem. The Bantu expansion, guys. If you don't understand the Bantu expansion, this would make sense. But Bantus expanded. Why do you think Africa is such a shithole? It's because it got dominated by Bantus from West Africa, from here, you know, the Ivory Coast and Ghana. But I'm hedging there. Boom. Not really Nigeria. It was Congo and Cameroon. But because I hedged on the Cameroon-Nigeria border, we get 5,000. These are West Congolasids, African forest type, intermediate between Congolacid, Guineacid, and Sudanid, but with a variety of unique features common in southern Cameroon, Congo, Western Central African Republic, and Gabon. So yeah, almost the entirety of the Republic of Congo, solid amount of DRC, huge amount of CAR, and then a huge amount of Cameroon. This is why we do it. Yeah, I thought Ghana. When I looked at the guy, I said Ghana as well. But look, Ghana wouldn't have even have gotten us that many points. Oh boy. I mean, these are just like Native Americans, right? Like, I feel more like South Dakota, maybe, or Canada. But I'll let Chad interject. No, those are not South Americans. These are native. Midwest, no. Look, it's either here, here, or here. Like, those are really the three options here. Here, here, or here. Off chance they're more up here. But again, it's really either here, here, or here. So y'all got 1. Type 1 for this. Type 2 for here. Or type 3 for down here. Let me know. I mean, they are a little bit darker. But I still think these are North Americans. Like, these don't look dark enough to be like indigenous whatevers. Yeah, I'm going to go 3. Boom. 3s get it. Arizona, that's exactly what I thought it was. Relatively recent North American contact types started to develop as Athabascan speakers of Canada. See, that's the thing. They started up here, and they came down here. When Europeans reintroduced the horse to America, which facilitated bison hunts in the prairie, today typical in Apache, Navajo, and Comanche, also in some neighboring tribes, still relatively numerous. Yeah, so these are some of that. All right, on to front. Oh boy. Oh my goodness. I mean, this got to be like Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, like some like pygmy craziness, right? This is from Middle East Spectator. It says the reason alerts in the Gulf took so long is because the target was actually Jordan. The initial 4 missiles launched from Khomeini were aimed at Jordan and arrived more than 30 plus minutes ago. Muwafaq Salti Air Base is in eastern Jordan, somewhat remote, so no siren sounded, explaining the delay in reporting. Bahrain's Ministry of the Interior has declared the all clear following Iranian attacks against them. Yeah, I don't think, no, Madagascar isn't quite like this. I mean, I'm tempted to maybe go like hedge here in southern Congo. Damn it. These are pre-nilotids. Ancient type with proto-nilotid traits, today still found in the border region of Sudan and Ethiopia. Jonathan Kelly said Malawi, which would have been a lot closer. Not a lot closer, actually, but dang, small area. Pre-nilotids. Crazy work. Crazy, crazy work. Again, if anyone has any super chats, I'm still taking them. And if you send in a super chat, oh yeah, we know these. These are Zosids. This is easy money. Yeah, or Caroids. Sandid variety named after the Karoo Desert. Very ancient and distinct with many unique features. Was dominant in southern Africa some centuries ago until Bantu and European colonization almost wiped it out. A few thousand remain among Ta speakers, Zam, Komani, Karatiji, and Coloreds. Loss of culture and displacement could make it extinct very soon, like the similar long-gone strand looper type. All right, we made our points back. But again, if you send in a super chat and it says a specific guess, I'm basically obligated to guess it. So if you're confident enough, send in a super chat guess, and then I'll lock it in. Oh, no, I've had this one before. Where is this one from? Oh, come on. Real patriots will remember. How am I forgetting? I feel like, I mean, it's somewhere in like Siberia or something, right? Come on, someone's got to remember. We've had this one at least twice in the past. Someone says just east of the Urals. I almost think it was like really, really far out, like out here, but I might not be remembering properly. Yeah, this is not the UK, sorry. Let me know, is it going to be more around here, like, or all the way out here? You know, more central or far east? Serious guess, people. It's in north central Russia. All right, let's see. Boom, you were right. Yenisei, Siberid subtype of the Yenisei River Basin in Siberia. Shows some Americanoid features. Yeah, they got a little bit of Native American going on. Also seems to be culturally and linguistically linked to Pacifids, although no close genetic relationship is clear. May show a proto-Mongoloid state, most common among the Ket people. Thank you, Jonathan. Real patriot. Let's move on. Oh boy. I think these are South Africans too. Yeah, these are Zosaids. Bantuid Khoisan subtype, contact type that developed as a result of the Bantu expansion, exactly like what I was talking about before, when Bantu assimilated into older Khoisan groups. So these are half Khoisan, half Bantu. $2, Americanoid features. So true. So true, Patriot. All right, on to round 8 out of 10. And we're back on the subcontinent. I mean, this guy on the left is the Serjaniest Serjani to ever Serjani. But it's always the India region guesses are in our kryptonite, guys. What region? I mean, is this Bangladesh? Is this Calcutta? Is this back down here in Kerala, where I feel like we always get cucked? Is this over here? Is this up there? We need Franz. We need Franz in the chat, wherever he is. I see there's a lot of people in the chat that are behind that I guess the stream is lagging. But, you know, Kerala might be correct here. Let's lock it in. It was not South. It was not South or Sri Lanka, my friend. These are South Gondids. Central India. The Central India hedge would have helped, would have saved us. All right, next round. Oh boy. I have no idea what this is. Oh man, oh boy. Oh boy, oh man, oh gosh. What the heck is this? Who are these people? Like the guy was kind of like a Mexican. They kind of both look Mexican, but I have no idea what this one is. Yeah, I don't know if these are like Native Americans like that. Maybe. Pacific Canadian coast. You know, why not? Well, These are just pueblids. I guess it would have been fine. I guess this works for all of America. Native American type named after the Pueblo communities in southwestern America. Extends over a large area of the southern U.S. So these are just like the weaker Native Americans that got wrecked by like the Comanche and the Navajo and the Choctaw and all that. All right. Well, we've all still got a few thousand points. But let's get this one. Oh, I feel like we've got this one before, right? Oh, where is this? I mean, it's obviously like around the Mediterranean, the Black Sea. What are we thinking? Someone says Armenian. Yeah, not really, but I hedged. Arabid, Orientalid proper, the most common type. Yeah, these are just Arabs, just straight up Arabs. We got 4,500. Where's our score? Top 7%. All right. I think we were top 4% or something last week. So we did okay. We did all right. Yeah, someone said Trabzon. No, I knew it wasn't Trabzon. They were too dark. These are Arabs. Arabs. But we have a statement from the IRGC. They said, following the successful operation of the IRGC Navy in hitting 21 targets at U.S. air and naval bases in the region and downing an MQ-9 drone over Jam County, considering the continuation of enemy hostility to complete the retaliatory operation, the Islamic forces and brave aerospace fighters of the IRGC targeted and destroyed 4 important targets, including F-35 fighter hangars at the airbase and command control center of the child-killing U.S. Army in Al-Azraq, Jordan, with their long-range solid fuel missiles. Our forces are ready to deliver a crushing and decisive response to any renewed enemy aggression, and the consequences of any renewed aggression lie with the American enemy. And victory is only from Allah, the mighty and wise. So, again, who knows if they actually struck those hangars? The U.S. could deny it if it did happen. And the claim on 21 Gulf targets, we saw strike confirmations of about 2 of those. So, in Bahrain and Kuwait. So, obviously, they're going to be exaggerating their claims. The U.S. is going to be downplaying it and suppressing footage. So that's the current situation that we are in. Thank you, everyone, for joining me this evening. Special thank you to our super chatters, Porphyry Allen, Jonathan Kelly, Captain Clutch Studio, Luke RB, Yarn Chicken, MR Christ is King, Andrew Palamos, and David C. If you have any other super chats, please send them. Going to be going for a few more minutes. $20 from Jonathan Kelly. Good Goy points. Thank you so much. Patriot. If anybody else, again, wants to support the show, send in any super chats. Please do so. I will, of course, answer whatever questions you have. If you're not already a subscriber over at worldwarnow.co, be sure to head on over there. Really the home base of the best geopolitical analysis from the perspective of the Orthodox saints. You know, one other post I think I wanted to actually show here was an update. David Erhan, my Turkish friend, a close Turkish friend of the show, sent me this post from Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. I'm going to share the post here. And of course, here he sent me, this is the main opposition leader who actually the Turkish courts reinstated him as the head of the main opposition party, the CHP in Turkey, over Özgür Ogul or whatever his name was. And Kılıçdaroğlu said, look at the lands of the Ottoman Empire. Turkey must go to that geography, must develop its own identity in that geography. We must go by growing, not by shrinking. There must be a Turkey in the Ottoman geography. And he's talking about Syria and Iraq, as well as Thrace and Greece. And so I went on the World War Now account and I said, this is all right on schedule according to the prophecies of the Orthodox saints. The next prophecy to be fulfilled is the fall of Erdogan. Afterwards, we will see Turkey move against Greece. And sure enough, just today, the main opposition leader against Erdogan has pledged to reclaim former Ottoman territory. The Turks will close the Bosphorus and Dardanelles Straits to the Russians, and Russia will attack Turkey. Turkey will pull out of Cyprus as it tries to defend itself against Russia, but it will be futile. Constantinople will return to Orthodox Christian hands. And of course, I post these prophecies in order. We have this prophecy partially already fulfilled from Elder Theodore Agrofarangides in Crete. He says, guys, you will be drinking your coffee and you will hear, and he actually was on that fateful Friday morning, you will be drinking your coffee and you'll hear that the Jews attacked the nuclear program of Persia. That's when events of greater magnitude will begin. Around the same time, Erdogan will fall. These will be the signs of the big events to come, so you understand that they are near, at the door. And then St. Paisios said, Turkey will be destroyed when the Turkish fleet sets out to attack Greece and reaches 6 miles out. The 6 miles ex Amelia mentioned in St. Cosmas's prophecy. This will be the hour they have their koliva, their death in their belts. And of course, the NATO summit in Turkey is coming up. And apparently Erdogan shelved the Turkish Blue Homeland Law. They're going to revisit it in October. It was supposed to become law in June. And this Blue Homeland Law does exactly what that St. Paisios and St. Cosmas prophecy said. It will move the exclusive economic zone instead of being from 12 miles out away from the Greek islands, it will only be 6, and the Turks will have asserted their sovereignty and their exclusive economic zone over those Greek islands, and they will move on some of those Greek islands. The law that will put that into place is still being moved through the Turkish governmental system. And then, of course, after this, Metropolitan Neophytos, recounting these same prophecies, he says they will close the Bosphorus Straits, and their friends, talking about the Turks, their pseudo-friends, the Russians, from which will transform into enemies in one night, and there will not be a single city in Turkey which will not be bombarded. And then this is a broader analysis from Metropolitan Neophytos that I'm going to read. It says, so then, what God revealed to his people, to the sanctioned ones, whether he's called Cosmas the Aetolian or St. Paisios or many others, Haji Florenzos here in Cyprus, or Demetrios Protopapas, well, and many others, is this. He's talking about lay prophets that reveal things to him. First, there will be a great slaughter in Syria, which we've seen happen. The Jews will strike the nuclear program in Persia, which we've seen happen. They are already preparing. Either before or after this strike, Erdogan will fall. That's what's coming next. At this moment, Erdogan is considered one of the great leaders of the world. The president of America came out and said, the guy is smart. That's how he called him. The guy. What can we do? He says, this is how things are in our era. Whoever has the power of weapons prevails. This one, he says, managed it, and moreover, without much blood, he says. And they took Syria. He's talking about how Erdogan successfully took over Syria by installing al-Jilani. He goes on and says, I will say another word. He fattened him up. He's talking about Trump fattening up and appealing to Erdogan. He encouraged him, even praised him. He did this on purpose to set him up to start a war with the Kurds now. The Jews want allies. Their great ally they feel in the Mediterranean Sea is the Greeks, the mainlanders, and Cyprus. And in the east, it will be the so-called Kurdish state. 40 million, mind you, are the Kurds, so America is promoting them. And finally, we will have a clash of the Jews with Turkey. And of course, this is why the Iranians have been striking Kurds in Kurdistan and Iraq so heavily. What does America want? America does not want, under any circumstances, to lose Turkey from the Western camp, but it wants to control it. Can it control Turkey with Erdogan in power? It cannot. They will find a way to bring down Erdogan, and this will happen. And those who will come out after Erdogan will be pro-Western and very much against Russia. So then we will have the Russo-Turkish War. During that period of the Russo-Turkish War, the new generation of Turkish politicians will strike in the Aegean. They will also make some incidents in Cyprus. St. Paisios said it, one slap the Cypriots will receive, so that we may be humbled. And then, when they attempt to attack and reach up to the 12 miles around the islands, the Russians will strike them so savagely that within 10 days at the least, most cities of Turkey will be bombed. Then Turkey will withdraw its troops from Cyprus, since it will see that their destruction of the Lord is happening. This is how Cyprus will be liberated. But we said we will have another effect from the vaccines. We are already living them, effect from the vaccines, whatever that may mean. And something else we will have in Cyprus, which, when we are liberated, we will not have much joy, so we must be prepared for a great groaning of humanity. Plus the events that will happen in various countries that will not be military. They will be geophysical and biological war. Biological war is what happened with the vaccines. It appears that we will go through something again in the year that is coming and in the following years that will have to do with illnesses and epidemics, pseudo-epidemics. And the most terrible is what will happen in various countries. Among them will be America, where they will have enormous geological problems, either with volcanoes or with earthquakes, or with submersions or with floods and droughts. So that is a bit of a prophetic debrief before we land the plane here on the show. And again, any final super chats would be greatly appreciated. Be sure to donate to the Buy Me a Coffee. If you go to buymeacoffee.com/World War Now, you can become a supporter here. You can give us a one-time donation. It really helps us out, really supports the show. Be sure to follow us on X at World War Now _. Really great stuff on the World War Now X account. Be sure to follow me on X as well at GnomeRad. Really great stuff from my account as well. Follow us on Telegram at World War Now Telly. Be sure to find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Wherever podcasts can be found, you can find us. Subscribe to the Substack, worldwarnow.co. That is our home base. That's where everything is posted first. Every live stream, every episode of World War Now, every episode of Ether Hour, every article. Dimitri is actually working on several articles right now. So check all of that out. And also check out, if you're on the Substack app or on the Substack website, go to your chat, check out the World War Now chat on Substack, get in the Q&A thread and start asking your questions. In the next week or two, Dimitri and I will be answering all the questions in that thread on a special Q&A for supporters World War Ether Hour episode for all World War Now supporters. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. I'm not seeing any final super chats, so it looks like we will land the plane. But remember, worldwarnow.co, everything is linked down in the description below. If you want to chat more, connect with Dimitri and I, be sure to visit the Discord, discord.com/www@discord.com. I don't know the exact link, but it's linked down below. The Discord server's link. So join the Discord server, chat with me and Dimitri. As I'm about to land the plane, of course, there are now sirens and alerts in Kuwait. Apparently, Kuwait is coming under Iranian fire. So that is the situation. Things have not calmed down in the Persian Gulf. World War III continues to rage on. Should have an Ether Hour episode with Jim Jatras releasing later this week. So check all of that out. And then, of course, Dimitri will be returning for the next World War Now episode. So thank you all so much for tuning in. World War Now continues to rage on even after we end the stream. So be sure to follow us on all the platforms, X, Twitter, Substack, so you can keep up with all of the latest news updates. And if you haven't already made World War Now your go-to source of news for these fateful days which we are living through, World War III, the growth of orthodoxy, the geopolitical realignment towards multipolarity, the war in Russia and Ukraine, then what are you doing, right? We are the main place, especially for Orthodox Christians, I think, that they should be finding their news. We analyze all of this through the lens of the Orthodox Christian prophecies, as well as, of course, geopolitical reality, of which I've been doing since 2017. I've been extensively analyzing world and geopolitics. So I do even have a degree in journalism. So that's that situation. But thank you all so much for tuning in. Not seeing any more super chats, so it looks like it's about time to land the plane. With all of that, I want everyone. Also, a final thing I guess I will say is please pray for me. I'm having some pretty debilitating back problems recently. The past 2-3 days, I've been in pretty much unignorable pain. This stream, it hasn't been too bad, but I know when I get up and lay down in bed, it's going to hurt. So keep me in your prayers. Keep my back in your prayers. If you would pray, my name in the church is Conrad. So pray for healing for the back of the servant of God, Conrad, if you could be so kind. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. All of our supporters, I love you more than I could express. But with all of that, I will see you all in the next one. God bless.